Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel, and last week I had the slightest impression that some of you wanted me to do a short tutorial on the Yamaha RS7000. And yeah, let's begin today. First video, let's create a track. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Yamaha RS7000 from the early 2000s Groovebox by Yamaha. Let's turn this on by pressing the power button on the back of the machine, and it takes some seconds to go up. And now let's take a look at the user interface elements here. The most important part is this block of knobs. So here you can set up the operation mode of this machine. So you can play back patterns, you can chain patterns, you can create a song, and yeah, you have the utility menu. And yeah, basically we have to say that all the music you create on the RS7000 is based on patterns, and the pattern is just a collection of musical measures. You can see this here on the screen. This pattern is made up from 4 measures of music. So if you take a closer look at these elements, you can see that there are dots printed onto the case, and the number of the dots tells you how many submenus you can reach here by pressing these buttons. So for example, if I want to choose a sound, I can press the mixer button, and I can look it up here on the case. It says the first screen is the voice selection, so if you press mixer once, you go to voice selection. And now let's select a drum kit, for example, the jungle kit. Alright, so now if you press this again, you will go to panning, equalizer and effect set. Now you can press the exit button to go back to the menus until you're there where you started. Okay, next element is this keyboard here. You can use that as a keyboard by pressing the keyboard button, but you can also choose your MIDI tracks here. So hold down the track select button, and then you can switch the MIDI channels. We're going to use the first track or first MIDI channel now for the drums. And as the keyboard is turned on, we can now just start playing some drums here. Alright, so let's record a short pattern of drums, and you can do that by using these buttons here, the playback buttons. So let's press record, and now let's take a look at the screen. The screen is made up from 4 columns regularly. And these 4 knobs and these 4 buttons control what's going on screen here. So for example, if I want to change the recording type from replace to step mode, I can use the second knob here to dial that in. Okay, so now let's press play, and then the step recording starts. And now I can use the second knob to dial in the note length. I'm going to use 8th notes here. Now let's record a simple 4 to the floor dance beat. So 1 bass drum, 1 hi-hat, bass drum and snare, hi-hat, and so on. Alright, let's listen to this. Okay, so now let's select the second MIDI channel here. As you can see, we got 16 MIDI channels all in all, and yeah, you can use different sounds on each channel. So we've got a multi-timbrality of 16 and a polyphony of 64, which means you can use 16 different sounds at once while playing 64 notes at once. Okay. Second track, now let's choose another sound. I will use a synthesizer bass sound, so go back to mixer, voice selector. Now let's change the bank here, and you can see this is possible using the first encoder here. So turn this around until you reach the synth bass and lead section. Now just audit these sounds. Yeah, let's use this acid bass here. And now again, go back to pattern and then press record. And now we want to overdub or replace, doesn't matter. Let's record this live. All right. So now let's take a closer look at these knobs here, because they will change the sound. So we've got the effect set here. Each sound has its own special effect. You can also add delay or chorus and reverb, and you can also set up the volume. And then we've got the envelope, attack, decay, sustain, release. Attack determines how fast your sound fades in. So if there is a fast attack, it begins immediately, and if you have a slow attack, so the sound begins slower. Let's change it to fast attack. Decay is the time in which the sound loses its volume, determined by the sustain value. So let's have a slightly longer decay and slightly lesser sustain. And release finally tells the synth what to do when you release the key. So if I dial this up, it will ring out a little bit longer. So now, fast release, long release, very long release. All right, and you can do the same thing to the filter and the pitch. So that's the envelope controller. And finally, filter. We've got the cutoff frequency and the resonance. Cutoff is this equalizer type thing which cuts away higher or lower frequencies depending on the filter you choose. So at the moment we have a low pass filter, which means all the lower parts of the sound are allowed to pass. So if you dial this down, this is this typical synth sound, and resonance is an emphasis on the filter cutoff frequency. So all parts of your sound that are equal to the filter's cutoff frequency will be emphasized and be a little bit louder, and this results in this typical whistling sound. And finally, we've got the envelope depth, which tells the synth how much of the envelope you dialed in, how much influence it should have on your sound shape. All right. And finally, we've got these buttons over here. So let's take a look at LFO first, which is an abbreviation for low frequency oscillator. And you can set this to modify the amplitude, the filter, or the pitch. So you can dial in LFOs for all three of them at once. So for example, I can set a square wave oscillator on the amplitude. And now the same thing for a filter. Yeah, that's a typical synthesizer thing. And we've got a portamento and pitch bands. Okay, so let's take a look at the settings the LFO can have. So if you press voice edit, then you can sync the LFO to the beats per minute of your song. So let's play this back again. So now let's dial in chorus. Alright, so now you can record your filter movements and your envelope movements and control volume and effects movements. Go back to pattern, then press record and then press overdub. And now press play again. Now let's just twist this knob while we are recording, so let's see. Alright, that sounds really nice. Alright, so far so good. Yeah, and that's it for today. I hope you found this useful, and there will be a second part of this video dealing with how to arrange your patterns into a song and how to use the sampler. Yeah, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button so you get notified when that video comes out. And as always, thanks for watching and see you again very, very soon. Bye bye.